Well, if you would turn in your Bibles, Acts chapter 27. Acts chapter 27, beginning with verse 13. Acts chapter 27 and verse 13. You'll find these words of the Lord. When the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their desire, putting out to sea, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after, a tempestuous headwind arose called Euroclydon. And so when the ship was caught and could not head into the winds, we let her drive, and running under the shelter of an island called Clauda, we secured the skiff with difficulty. This is part 2 of storm survivors. Storm survivors. Touch yourself, say, I'm a storm survivor. There are different people here that have gone through different experiences, and some of you just came out of a storm. Some of you are in a storm right now. Others of you are headed into one. It's not a matter of if storms will ever come. I mean, just living in the world lets you know the reality of storms. You cannot stop storms from coming, but you can prepare yourself for them and have a plan when the storm does come into your life. It's amazing how life can send storms your way. I remember when I was in school and we would have fire drills or tornado drills. These were things that in the event of an actual storm that you knew where to go. You can't wait until you need help to try to get help. You've got to have a plan before disaster strikes. That's when lives are decimated. It's when something happens, you experience a storm for which you were not prepared, and you didn't have an emergency plan. You didn't know where the fallout shelter was. You got to have a place of refuge that in the event of a storm, this is where we go. So that your instinct kicks in when you are panicking and you cannot think. That's why you have to do drills so that you do it even without thinking. You got to realize that when a storm hits my life and I don't know what to do and it has knocked the wind out of me, what do I do then? What happens when a storm hits your life that you were never expecting to come? What happens when divorce happens and relationships fall apart and the trust is broken in almost an irreparable fashion for you? What happens when financial ruin happens to you and you find yourself in a financial place that you never ever thought that you would be? What in the world do you do when you are diagnosed with a sickness and a health challenge hits your body that you never thought would happen to you? You saw other people with it. You used to laugh at other people, and now your body is feeling funny. Now you're dealing with challenges. And so there are storms of various kinds. And so there is a shelter for every storm. There's a shelter for every storm. You have to find it. You have to find it. Now, this is what I want you to understand clearly about that. That sometimes the shelter is not found on the same level where you are, so you have to arise in order to get out of the storm, in order to find your place of refuge. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have been on flights and we have gone through storms and there was turbulence and everything was shaking, and then they put on the fasten seatbelt sign and the pilot came on and told the flight attendants to be seated. You know that it's sort of rough weather when they tell the flight attendants to sit down. But they announced for the flight attendants to sit down. And what they did, they were trying to find calmer air, and they couldn't find it on the level where they were. So the pilot had to pull on his controls and rise in altitude and come to another level where there was smooth air. And sometimes you can never get out of your storm on the level where you are. You got to realize that there's something that's got to rise up in me, that I've got to rise to a new level. That the same level of thinking that got me in this storm is not the same level of thinking that's going to get me out of this storm. I've got to rise up. And I'm just here to tell you that one of your first keys to being able to rise out of your storm is that I got to quit doing the stupid stuff. Don't have a storm and then holding your stomach over in the night, knowing I shouldn't have eaten that. You got to rise to another level. You got to come up in your thinking to say, you know what, I've gotten too old to fool with this now. Now, I could do this a few years ago, but I cannot deal with this in my body right now. This thing is giving me some reaction. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Where you've been in a situation and you've done some stuff that you could get away with back then, but now you realize, I got to rise up now. I've got to rise. I'll never find smoother air until I arise to another level. As long as I'm on this level, I'm going to be dealing with these challenges. And so it is time for me to arise. Touch yourself, say arise. Now put your hand on your head, say arise, arise. Because you got to start thinking on another level. I'm just telling you, you'll never be able to get out of your storm because most of the stuff in your storm has happened by stuff right here. And until you arise from this place, you'll never be able to come to that place of calm air until you arise. You got to get over stuff that's getting you under. You got to learn how to get over attitudes and comments and words. Listen, when you reach a certain level in life, you got to realize, listen, I don't have time to fight with you over all of this mess. You got to choose your fights wisely. You can't afford to get in every fight because somebody looked at you crosswise and now your feelings are hurt and now you want to pick a fight and read that mail and tell them. It takes a whole lot of energy to get your blood pressure going. Your blood sugar levels get all out of balance. You get all of yourself all messed up and jacked up physically, emotionally. You get home now, you wrestling right in the bed, can't even sleep, smoldering veins popping out of your neck, and you know the nerve of them. I'm gonna tell, listen, choose your fights. Choose your fights. You can't afford to get in every battle. You got to just say, let it go. Just let it go. You know they crazy. Just let it go. Just let it go. You got to assign it to their insanity that they just don't. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They're out of their mind. They don't even know what they do. They don't even know who they're messing with. Father, forgive them. You got to just release that thing because you don't have time to get in every storm. Don't just let everything that comes out of somebody else's mouth stir up a whirlwind in your life. But see, turbulent winds, they cause the eagle to fly higher. And it gives the eagle, not only when the eagle flies higher, does he get out of the turbulence of the lower levels. What it does is that it also gives him a larger view. It gives them a greater perspective so that the eagle can now see things on this upper level that they couldn't see down there. And you know the greatest thing about the eagle, their most prominent feature about them is the keenness of their vision. You know, to God, it is my prayer to be able to have the perspicacity of an eagle so that they have such keenness in their vision that they can see stuff miles away and fly down and swoop and snatch a fish out of the water or a snake that's on the ground or a rabbit, and they can take their powerful talons of something that they saw miles in the air and swoop down and snatch the prey because they could see it long before it saw them coming. And they zoom in on their target and come and swoop it up. And so it's amazing that you can actually be in a storm, and the only way that you can find calmer air is to turn up. And sometimes the only way that you can get out of your storm is to turn up, because you can't deal with it by calling your friends and your cronies. You got to turn up. You got to turn to a higher source. You got to arise to a new level, because you can't deal with this in the flesh, because we fight not against flesh and blood. So stop using carnal weapons, because you think that I'm gonna nip this in the bud because they think they don't know who they messing with. No, you don't know who you're messing with. You're trying to solve by natural means what can only be solved by spiritual means, because this is a spirit that is assigned trying to wreck your life, trying to mess up your mind, your finances, your relationship. This is a spirit that has an assignment from Satan to sabotage your life and to put you into such pandemonium and confusion that you don't know what to do. But the devil is a lie. And the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Thank God, whether you realize it or not, praise is a weapon. Worship is a weapon. The name of Jesus is a weapon. The blood of Jesus is a weapon. And sometimes you can't just go back and try to use vocabulary from your mind to try to attack somebody. You got to get on your knees. There are sometimes, I'm just telling you, that you've got to be able to cry out to the rock that is higher than I and get supernatural strength to let the super come down on your natural, because we cannot figure all of this stuff out in our natural. And that's why he's God. He is God. But storms have a way of helping us to clarify what's really important to us. And remember that confusion always precedes clarity. Confusion precedes clarity. And I've talked to you briefly about the suddenness of the storm. Sometimes a storm can brew up out of nowhere. You didn't even see it coming. Storms sometimes come without warning. And then there's the severity of the storm. Sometimes you don't know whether you're going to live or die when you get in a storm. It's like, God, am I going to make it out of this? There's a severity of the storm. Then there's the secret of the storm, because storms give us another perspective of life. You begin to see life in a different way when you get in a storm. There's a secret that storm holds for you. Then there's the source of the storm. Storms arise from a particular place of origin. And remember, I said that if you are the source of it, because some storms are self-inflicted. You can do stupid stuff and cause a storm in your own life. If you cause the storm, ride it out. If the devil caused the storm, rebuke him. Rebuke him. But if the storm was sent by God, then you have to relinquish your will to God's will. Surrender to God. Surrender to God. Surrender to him. And remember that when you're going through a storm, it's a time. It's a waiting season in your life. And that waiting season is designed for you to reflect. That waiting season is a time for you to evaluate. That waiting season is a time for you to adjust. That waiting season is a time for you to learn. That waiting season is a time for you to grow. Don't just waste your time while you're waiting. Do something. Waiting is not just passively sitting by. Remember, they that wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord. You go in a restaurant, the waitress waits on you. The waiter waits on you. What are they doing while they wait on you? They are serving. Don't get so mad because God hasn't come through for you according to your terms that you refuse to serve while you wait. It's one of the greatest ways to get your breakthrough and to make the time pass by faster is to serve while you wait. You got to learn how to serve while you wait. While you're waiting on God, you're serving while you wait. You show God what you are waiting on by showing what you're working on. And so you have to be working on something. Touch your neighbor, say, I'm working on something. I'm working on something. I'm working on something. When people look at you, they don't see the totality of who you are and all that you can be, because you're working on something. You're working on something. You're a work in progress. And I've told you that when God sends a storm into your life, he will send storms of adversity for his own purposes. Because adversity has a way of drawing us closer to God. When God sends a storm, it always draws us closer to him. It always draws us closer. Storms have an ability to draw us closer to God. But here's another thing, is that adversity introduces us to ourselves. You don't even know who you are and what you're capable of until you have adversity in your life. You know who people are when they're feeling good all the time. You got to wait until adversity hits them to see the real person. You'll see who they really are. And then you start asking these questions. Why do these storms come? Why do they come? As I mentioned, William Booth said that you cannot improve the future without disturbing the present. You cannot improve the future without disturbing the present. And so remember now that every storm is a school. Every storm is a school. Don't leave out of the school without the lesson. Every trial is a test. If you don't pass the test, you're going to take it again. Every trial is a test. Every experience is an education. Don't be a fool and go through the experience and leave the education in the experience, because you're going to have to go back into another experience just like it. And every difficulty is for your development. And we have to walk and understand those particular elements of where we are. But remember this, that storms touch every life. Storms touch every life. Nobody is exempt from storm. I don't care whether you do good, you're going to have storms. You do bad, you're going to have storms. I don't care whether you're smart, you have storms. Whether you're dumb, you have storms. You meet pretty, you have a storm. Ugly, you're going to have a storm. Nothing exempts you. You know, you might look at somebody and say, oh, she's too cute to have a storm. Oh, no, she's not. Storms touch every life, every life. And 100% of those who are set for unique promotions have to endure a season of contradictions. I want you to realize that 100% of those who are set for unique promotions have to endure a season of contradiction. It's amazing that when God's going to promote you, you don't get promoted without a test. You don't get promoted without a test. They're going to observe how you've been on this level. Every test, every level, when God gets ready, before promotion comes a test. So just realize, if I'm going to another level, I'm going to have to go through some turbulence. I'm going to go through a test on this level. Jesus has let us know in St. John 16:33 that the things that I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. Not you may have it, you will have tribulation. You're going to have problems. You're going to have tests and trial. But he said, but be of good cheer, because I've overcome the world. I have overcome the world. And so my admonition to you is, don't let a storm paralyze you with fear. Don't let a storm paralyze you with fear. Life is like riding a bike. Either you keep pedaling, you've got to keep moving, or you fall down. You got to keep moving. You can't let stuff in life stop you in your tracks. You cannot be paralyzed by fear because something failed. You've got to keep moving. If you don't keep pedaling, you fall down. Your life falls down. And I've seen people fall down in their faith because something failed and then they fell because something that they were working on failed. But don't confuse the failure with who you are. Failure is an event, not a person. Failure is an event, not a person. So what you did is not the same as who you are. Failure is what happened in your life. It is not who you are. And when you associate the event with the person, you have just taken on the nature of that, and now it changes the whole persona of everything that will come into your life, because you perceive yourself by the experience that you've been through. Just because you've been through voodoo doesn't make you voodoo. Just because it gets on you. You know, you can get instinct. I gotta say stinking for y'all, because some people, you know, it's like, well, what is he talking about? Stank. You know what stanky is when you've been in stank. It's not grammatically correct, and it something recoils in me. It's that word is recalcitrant in my spirit, you know, that says stank. I know what it means, and you know what it means. When when it's just a soft, pungency to it, you call that stink. But you can cross some lines, and this is no longer even stink. That's stank. That's deep. It is malodorous and odoriferous on steroids. Have you ever thought about the fact how Job dealt with a storm in his life, and he lost his children, he lost his wealth, and he lost his health? Now, those are some serious things to lose. In his storm, he lost his children, his wealth, and his health. And check this out. He did nothing to deserve the storm. He did nothing to deserve the storm. And there are people today that have been in a storm, and they're trying, some folks have to figure everything out. They've got to have an answer as to why this happened, and they're trying to figure out, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? But just remember that the storm does not come to last. It only comes to pass. The storm is moving. It is a moving thing. Storm systems don't just hover. They are a moving thing. They are designed to move. So you have to learn how to wait out a storm, how to weather the storm, because it is passing. And don't give up permanent stuff because of temporary circumstances. You never cut what you have the power to untie. Take your time, and weather the storm, I want you to notice verse 17, Acts chapter 27, verse 17. When they had taken it on board, they used cables to undergird the ship, and fearing lest they should run aground on the Sardis sand, they struck sail and were so driven. Now, I want you to notice here what happened. They had to use cables to undergird their ship. Whenever you're in a storm, you've got to use something to tighten the ship. Whenever you're in a storm. And understand that you can resolve to conquer challenges or cowardly quit. You can resolve to conquer challenges or cowardly quit. but you always have a choice. You always have a choice. And you're going to be dealing with some stuff in these choices. Lincoln Pat said that before the fruits of prosperity can come, the storms of life need to first bring the required rains of testing, which mixes with the seeds of wisdom to produce a mature harvest. You don't get a harvest without some thunder and lightning and rain. There's going to come a storm. You don't even realize it until you look back that the storm that I went through was necessary for the harvest of who I am. It was necessary to build the type of resilience in me, to give me the type of magnanimity of spirit. You cannot build courage unless you're faced with fear. You can't build courage and there's nothing that's intimidating in your life. So you have to learn how to tighten the ship. Whenever you're in a storm, they undergirded the ship. You've got to undergird the ship, because if you get in a storm, your marriage is going to be threatened to fall apart. Every marriage that has a special needs child has increased pressure on it. If a person is dealing with a sick parent, a sick child, it puts extra pressure on the marriage. And many marriages don't survive because when they go through the storm, they do not use cables to bind them closer together to undergird the ship. So when there's a storm in your life, you got to start looking for cables to tighten the ship. Tighten the ship. Tighten the ship. Touch your neighbor, say, tighten the ship. You have to tighten it. Whatever you don't tighten will fall off. It'll flop out. I'm just telling you, there's certain things that you've got to tighten. You've got to learn to tighten the ship. And to tighten or to secure your relationships, here's some very simple things. To tighten it, you got to spend quality time together. You have to spend quality time together. It tightens your ship. It tightens the ship. You have to worship together. Worshiping together binds you. It's like the family that prays together, stays together. Worship together. Pray together. Pray together. Touch and be affectionate with one another. Whenever you're going through a storm, touch and be affectionate with one another. Play together. Play together. My dad sort of adopted that. You know, he said the family that prays together and plays together stays together. You have to learn to play together. Don't take everything so serious. Say, listen, we need to talk. We got to have a family meeting. Who wants to go into that kind of situation? Play together. Play together. Reduce your stress. Play together. Laugh together. It secures the ship. You don't have a friendship with people with whom you cannot laugh. You'll know whether somebody's a friend if you ever shared a laugh with them. If you can't laugh with people, that ain't no friend. Don't call yourself my friend and we can't laugh. You get offended because I tell you something funny. If we don't laugh together, you are not my friend. Don't get it twisted. You need to be able to laugh with somebody. You have to live, love, laugh. My God, dance together. Dance together. You ever go through a storm? You don't have any money? Just go ahead and just laugh anyway. Dance. You owe people, you may as well just dance. You're still in debt. You still owe the money. You may as well just, you may just laugh it off instead of just, avoiding the telephone call because you know they're calling. You know what they're calling about. Don't you think it would throw them off if when, the bill collector is calling your house, you just pick up the phone and just start laughing? You want how much? By when? You gonna do what? And if you just started laughing hysterically, just laughing hysterically, and whenever you get your breath, apologize, it'll at least make you feel better. It really will. It really will. You have to learn how to laugh together, dance together, sing together. Sing together. It actually helps you tighten the ship. Sing together. And here's another thing. Listen to music together. Listen to music together. Do you know that statistics have discovered that couples who dance and sing and listen to music together tend to have stronger and more lasting, loving relationships? They have more lasting and loving relationships when they dance, sing, and listen to music together. It actually undergirds the ship. So sometimes the things that undergird the ship, it's not always hard work. Make it fun. When life is no longer fun, it's hard. Don't let the devil rob you. The joy of the Lord is my. Don't let anybody rob your joy. Your joy is a secret to undergirding your relationship. And that's what happens. Sometimes people get to higher levels and they got more stuff, but they got less joy. What difference does it make? Take me back to the time when I had my joy. You know, you can have more joy sometimes having to eat ramen noodles than to have steak in the refrigerator that you can't pay for. You know, don't ever discount your joy. Don't ever discount your joy. Don't ever discount your joy, because physical attractions are common, mental connections are rare, but relationships last longer when they are actually based on a mental connection. They last longer. They last longer from when they have a mental connection, not a physical connection that, ooh, baby, you fine. And that if you gain too much weight, you know that you're not going to appeal to me. No, that's a mental connection. It's a mental connection. It is. Don't be shallow, Hal. Because fine doesn't mean that you're going to be happy. I've seen fine people together and they are miserable. You got to have a connection that brings joy in the inside of you. If nobody wants to be around you, you don't have any joy. You got to have joy and share the joy. When you have it, you produce it wherever you go. You know, carry your party with you. Don't be waiting to have a good time. Carry your party with you. You know, in the same way, when you come to the house of God, bring your praise with you. You don't come here for somebody to fire you up and motivate you. You come here to celebrate. You already, you know, you get your groove on when you coming out of the car.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again.